What is up? Changing the radiator on this Ford Ranger. This is the older 2003 generation. Got to show you guys something. This reminds you of how easy this shit used to be. So just biggest hassle was just draining the coolant. Other than that, to get the radiator out on this, you take two 10 millimeter headed bolts out of the hip here, and the electric fan and shroud comes off. Two more bolts right here, and this whole radiator just pops out of there. And that was it. That was it. So I'm just putting it back in. Just gotta say, man, that's crazy, man. That's how the good old days used to be. That's why it's easier to work on trucks, older trucks, than it is on new stuff. And the reason I replaced this radiator is just because that nipple right there was breaking on this one right here. It's all broke off, and it was just, from the age, it was just brittle. And it kept cracking, and then it kept leaking, even though I kept trying to tighten it up. So I took the intake hose off, which I just laid it up there. I brought this all out thinking I was going to have all sorts of pieces to put in there, but it was just 4 bolts. Just 4 bolts once the 2 hoses were off, or the little one bypass one up here. And that was it. Very simple. This is the 2.3 liter Mazda engine, made back when Ford pretty much owned Mazda. Okay, the next day, taking a look at one more thing on here. Now they got the new radiator in there. Is the AC unit. And just show you another example of how easy stuff used to be. So just a few minutes, took out 1 bolt, cruise control module pulled out of the way. 4 bolts, blower motor is out. And you're talking like 5 minutes. And if you could get to all the bolts, this is the entire evaporator assembly right here, and then the heater core's in there. So I was just thinking I want to see if I could get to the evap coil a little bit just to clean some of it, because I'm sure it's kind of got crap in here, and you can kind of see it kind of does a little bit. So I'm going to try to spray some crap on there and kind of just blow it off, hopefully from this end without taking it off. I'm just thinking the AC works. I just feel that it probably should blow a little harder than it does, but it is working. So I'm thinking, and it's probably a little bit of a leak right there. So I did have to add a little bit of refrigerant, by the way, start of this cooling season, but it wasn't flat. It was just low a little bit. 134A of refrigerant, still relatively cheap, so ain't worth changing the coil for that. Just have to add a little bit. Then I'm talking, I had to add part of a can I had from last year, and I didn't even use it all. So I need to see if I got any cleaner I could spray on there. And then also the other thing I might do while the cleaner's on there is I might take this motor. I don't know if I can get this wheel off without fucking it up, but I can't tell if that's a little tight. I mean, it's spinning relatively easy, but might want to try putting some oil in the bearings if it's possible. I remember back in the day, if you couldn't oil bearings, people used to take a little drill bit, just a small one, and just knock it through the caps and just squirt oil in there, and then just put, some epoxy over the hole or something. Might even just do that. I don't know. I'm going to look into that. So. Okay, it's been like another 30 minutes. I sprayed some coil cleaner down in there. Still got to get a little more of the debris out. And then some other cleaner to kind of rinse off the coil cleaner. So the proper way to take this all off, but the gaskets, everything we toast. So I'm not going to do that. Just trying to make it a little better. So I got this running on low speed right now. When I ran this with the blower on it, it pretty much maxed this out right around 10 amps. So let's see if there's any difference when I get done. Might not be, but I kind of drilled a little hole right here. Same thing on the back. Been dropping some oil in there. I'm trying to push it through with the air gun. Hoping it's getting down in the bearings there. So that's just one little... That's something that old school people used to do, just old school. And pretty common back in the day when people had the mentality to fix things rather than just always replace. I mean, if this came apart easier, there's just 2, $4 bearings in this thing that could be replaced if the brushes are still good, And back in the day, used to replace brushes also in motors. It's not something done anymore. Okay. Don't know if I'll be able to do this with one hand or not. Oh, I knew that would happen. So running pretty close, about the same for the amps. Motor might be a little more loose. The vents need to be blowed out. I just found those dirty on the motor too, so I'll let this go. It might keep spinning around. But came apart pretty good. I used a wire wheel here, cleaned all that up really nice. Was able to use the channel locks, kind of pull that locking clip right off. And then put a little bit of WD around the shaft. And then I just pulled the wheel right off the motor. So that actually wasn't very hard. Sounds pretty good. Oh, okay, so it's maxing it right at 10. And that's what all this goes up to is 10 amps. And the way I put the oil in there, and I capped it with a little bit of a cork tape on the inside, but it's down in there, and as it runs, it might actually get a little more lube into the bearings over time. So I'm just hoping this just makes the blower a little bit stronger at this end, cleaning the coil. That was easy on the old beater. We'll had to use the phone to hook up the test stove. So I'll put that on the screen now. Added just a few ounces of refrigerant from a partially open can I've been using for the last couple summers. Like a 20-ounce can, and I haven't even gone through it. This is blowing, I think it is blowing harder. Oh, it definitely is. So what I did between spraying off some of that gunk on that coil and maybe oil in the motor, maybe not the motor so much, but it couldn't hurt to oil the bearings. But it is blowing a little harder, I think. And then once it got a little more airflow, that's why I wanted to hook up my suction side again and take a look at it. And I was able to put a little more refrigerant into it. Yeah, that's definitely blowing a little better. Even over here, this side doesn't blow as hard. It's blasting pretty hard in the middle. It even sounds a little louder than it was before. So probably moving a little more air through the coil. Yeah, that's definitely feeling pretty good. So anyway, well, that does it for easy fixins on a classic truck. It's not that classic, but it is a 2003. It's got all sorts of little quirks, being that it's older with 240,000 miles. One quirk it has is someday I need to fix the little speed sensor down the transmission. No doubt it's making some pulses from vibrations, which is making that needle jump. When I'm driving, it's steady, so it's just real sensitive to when you're stopped. I am thinking of maybe putting like 410 gears in here. Maybe just go for it, put 456s. Although it's only a 7.5 rear diff, I don't know if it's large enough for 456s. But it does have 355s from what the code on the door says. So it gets up to about 40 in first gear if I run it out. So putting in 410s definitely make it a little bit more peppy to accelerate. I need to calculate what my final ratios are going to be, but this is more of an around city. It's not my highway vehicle, other than just driving on the little loop 101 and whatever here around Phoenix, Glendale. So, yeah. And, of course, eventually put the turbo on, which is what I plan to. But I think the gear swap will make a noticeable difference to get this thing moving out of its way. It definitely doesn't have any power until it gets over 3,000 RPMs. And then I feel this engine can rev a little higher than it does when it slams into the rev limiter, but whatever. Anyway, I'm gonna end it there. I got something to do. So with that, catch you guys later. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and comment. Seriously.